they set me up with?
You could.
What should I do instead?
You can download it, you have to hit the request, but Outlook on the phone is so trash. And you can actually see it. No one.
Alright, well, yes, I don't even use it on my phone.
Yeah, no, but they group conversations so that it's not. That would help me.
Yeah, but that was like 2 hours.
Oh, I'm going. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. My cell's at 8 number. I know. I know. Also, exactly. Also, like, if you need something like right away or at night or early in the morning, how are we gonna do that? It's I gotta have it on myself.
Oh, the laptop?
Nice hotspot. Nice hotspot. I'm gonna be able to. Oh, yeah, of course. Good.
We work together. She puts up with things. No, I got it set. Just about like speaking order, the time.
Yeah. I was like,
Testing, testing.
There you go. Or there. Okay. I've been noted, but I have been noted.
Oh.
Two-minute warning.
Yes, they will soon
1 minute warning. Heads up. Heads up. Take the whip for the right.
Got everybody? All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us here today. Today's a really important day. We have the opportunity before us to answer the mandate given to us by the American people who respect banning stock trading in Congress. And we should not waste time. I want to start off by saying how much I appreciate this bipartisan group of members. We've been meeting regularly over the last however many months, frankly, maybe years, trying to work to get consensus. I'm proud to have worked with Seth Magaziner, who I'll turn it over to in a minute, who I've been working with since Abigail Spanberger left. She and I introduced legislation 5 years ago on this topic, as you all know, on a bipartisan basis. And we've been trying to move this along. That bill, the trust in Congress, the original Trust Act, has a significant number of co-sponsors. But what we decided to do is take the multiple bills that are represented by folks on this dais, bring it together into one bill, and speak with one united bipartisan voice that it is time for Congress to act. It is time for the leadership of Congress on both sides of the aisle to do what the American people have been demanding, which is to end day trading by members of Congress. They do not send us here to enrich ourselves while we are voting on the issues. They send us here to fix and address, and then have members who are trading stocks on the very issues they're supposed to be voting on an objective basis for the benefit of the American people. So we're going to have filed today, we have just filed, a bill that we're calling the Restore Trust in Congress Act. And that legislation, which I'll let Seth expand upon a little bit more in detail, takes the best elements of all of our legislation, puts it together to restrict and limit and ban trading of stocks by individual members of Congress. Now, it retains the ability of members of Congress to have their funds in broadly held mutual funds. It allows members of Congress to be able to work through under the rules to do that, but they should not be trading equities, and they should not be enriching themselves on the very issues that they're voting on. We have Capital Trades, for example, reports that 113 members of Congress made 9,261 trades in 2024 involving 706 million shares of other assets. That's not why people sent us here to Washington. There are 330 million Americans. There are 435 of us. If you want to day trade, leave Congress. It's that simple. If you come up here with the trust of the American people, do your job, vote to deliver for the American people. I would note that Speaker Johnson has said that he supports banning trading of stocks among members of Congress. I would note that President Trump has said he supports it. I would note that Secretary Bessent has said that he supports it. And vast numbers of both sides of the aisle support this, and it is long past time that we move. The House Committee on Administration should consider this bill, move the bill forward, amend it, go through regular order, but deliver it quickly to the floor of the House. But we're going to get a vote on this. This is a non-debatable proposition. We are going to get a vote on this. We are calling on leadership to use regular order to deliver, but it is past time to deliver, and this bipartisan group are standing united to say that that's what we should do. With that, I would like to turn it over to Seth Magaziner, who's led this initiative on the other side of the aisle alongside me with the Trust Act.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. There are two types of people who come to Washington. There are those who are determined to root out corruption and those who are wedded to the status quo. And the status quo has been in effect for far too long. It is long past time that we ban members of Congress from trading stocks. Why? Because the opportunity for corruption is just so great. When members of Congress decide how to vote on a bill, they should be voting based on what they think is best for the American people, not what is best for their investment accounts. When members of Congress come here, they should not be able to profit off of inside information that the average American and the average market participant does not have access to. Now, I am very grateful to everyone on this stage for having the courage to do the hard thing and stand up for reform. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Those of us who support banning stock trading in Congress are very vocal in our position. But that doesn't mean that there aren't opponents. It's just that the opponents don't say it so vocally, but they say it quietly behind closed doors, and they're very persistent, believe me. And so it takes courage, and it takes, I think, a real maturity for members who, to be frank, everybody on the stage probably doesn't always agree with each other on very much. But one of the things that we all understand is that in order for legislating to work, in order for Washington to work, we need to be able to put aside our differences every once in a while and work together where we can in the interest of the American people. I want to give just a few quick shout-outs before handing it to the next speaker. And if there are questions about the details of the bill, we're happy to do that in the Q&A. This bill is the product of a lot of people putting in a lot of hard work. And in my view, this bill is far superior to any bill on this topic that has been introduced so far, including our own that I introduced with Chip. This is the product of a lot of negotiation and also a lot of listening to experts and to members about what can work. This is a bill that can pass and should pass. And as Chip called out some of the prominent Republican leaders who have been supportive of this effort, I'll call out a few of the Democratic members, starting with our own leader, Hakeem Jeffries. Hakeem has been steadfast on this. He was the first leader of either party in either chamber to come out in support of a stock trading ban. I've been in regular conversation with him, as I know Pramila and others have as well. He is with us in this effort. I want to give a big shout out to all of the Democratic members on this stage, particularly Pramila Jayapal, who has been leading on this issue for years and who I have enjoyed working with and learned a lot from through this process. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Dave Min, Raja Krishnamurthy, who's been leading on this for some time. I know that we have, I think that's all that's actually here today, but others who have been supportive of this as well, here in spirit. And I also want to give a shout out to Abigail Spanberger. Abigail, as Chip noted, was an early leader on this issue, an early initiator of this movement. And although she has left us for other pastures, I know that she is very pleased with the progress that we have been making. So with that, the time has come. Let's get it done. And I'm going to turn it over now to someone else who's been a great partner as we've been meeting through the spring and the summer, Representative Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, Seth. Good afternoon, everybody. It's not every day you see this cast of characters up here. These are all smirking out there, but that's a good thing, and it speaks to the power of this cause. How did we get here? Pretty much everyone up here had their own version to accomplish the same goal. Myself and Alexandria and Raja had a bill. Anna's had a bill. Burchett has had a bill. Seth, Chip, Pramila, Scott, you've been co-sponsoring a lot of these bills. I mean, every single one. And Seth came to my office. Was that earlier this cycle? As you did to all the individual bill authors and said, can we find a way to merge all these bills together? And that's, in fact, what's happened here. Many of you knew I spent my entire career before here as an FBI agent. When I came here, wasn't a revelation. It confirmed what I already knew, that members of Congress have access to inside information. Period. End of story. And that being the case, a lot of opponents to this will say, well, we already have insider trader laws on the books. This is why it's different. If you're a typical run-of-the-mill insider trading case, you're sitting on a company board, you have access to one company's information that is imminent, that's been voted on or about to be voted on by a board. Members of Congress, just by being on the floor of the House, have a much more clear purview being behind the curtain of whether a CR is going to pass or not, whether there will be a government shutdown, is AI regulation going to pass or not. Just a much clearer sense for the likelihood, the probability of things coming to fruition or not coming to fruition. And for anybody in this institution to trade off that information is illegal and unethical, both. We are dealing with the ethics piece. The criminal law will remain on the books. But this ethics bill, and that's what this is a culmination of the efforts of everybody here on the stage. And I'm very, very proud to stand in partnership with each and every one of them, because this is beyond an 80-20 issue. This is a 95-5 issue, and the 5 that are against it are probably in this institution day trading. So we're going to, and by the way, we will find a way to get to the floor one way or another, and we will leave it at that. There are multiple pathways to get a bill to the floor. We are not going to let another Congress pass without getting this done. And with that, I yield, and I will call up my classmate from the 115th Congress, Pramila Jayapal.
Thank you so much, Brian, and thank you to everyone. This has been, as you've heard, the product of many years of work. And I remember back in 2020 when I introduced my first bill on this topic with Elizabeth Warren and a number of Republicans as well. I think it was Matt Rosendale at the time. We have continued to do the work to try and bring these bills together because we know that sometimes what happens in this place is if there are multiple bills on a subject, leadership that may not want us to move forward says, we got too many bills, we can't decide. So we did the work of negotiating with each other. We brought in experts to make sure, including experts that manage money and know what the loopholes are that we needed to make sure were fixed. And I think we are doing the simplest thing that we can do in many ways. It is the simplest thing that the American people want, which is to know that their member of Congress represents them and not their own pocketbooks. And that's really what this is about. Brian talked about insider trading and the information we get. We also should know that people are taking votes on issues where they're not thinking about their own stock portfolio. At the core, this is really about public trust. And public trust right now in government is at an all-time low. And there's a good reason for that, because people don't know who we represent. So let's make this really, really clear. This bill gets around many of the loopholes that existed before in some of the other pieces of legislation. There's real accountable fines here where perhaps when you make your first mistake, that's a pretty low fine. But after that, there is a 10% penalty and disgorgement of profits, which is really, really important because there needs to be some way to hold people accountable. And we know that there are a lot of places that essentially trade on their ability to get us to do certain things that benefit big corporations out there, benefit our own pockets. And so I'm really excited that we're in this place. We've been here before on the stage, actually with several of us that have been here over time, but I do feel like this is different this time. I feel like we are really at a place where we brought all the bills together and we are going to, as Brian said, we are going to get it to the floor. Whether it's through whatever process that looks like. So I want to thank all of our, trying to be vague here, all of our friends on both sides of the aisle that have been really clear about standing up for the American people, standing up to make sure that we represent them and not our pocketbooks. And with that, it's a great honor to introduce my colleague, Representative Tim Burchett.
Oh, I thought you said Colin Turchett. Thanks, Brad Paul. Brad Paul, thank you, ma'am. Cortez, Luna, gentlemen. It's kind of funny when you deal with this stuff. And I talked to the ethics people the other day. Everybody knows I make these crazy skateboards, and people asking, "Hey, sell me a skateboard." So I said, "Well, let me go check it out with ethics." I literally got to get attorneys involved to sell a dadgum skateboard. But if I want to do insider stock trading, just get elected to Congress, really. I mean, let's just be honest. Look, everybody ought to do like I do. Get their $12,000 portfolio in a mutual fund. Let my buddy Tommy Seiler handle it. He does pretty well. Although my daughter's going to school now, so I'll be cashing that out very soon. But look, we're public servants. We're stewards of the community. Nobody's above the law. You hear that. It's kind of become cliche up here. But for years, members of Congress, we know they've gotten rich using hardworking American taxpayers' money. Members sit on committees. We attend private meetings where we gain privileged information about companies. Congress appropriates money to economic sectors that may overlap with members' own portfolios. I call it the war pimps a lot. I worry about us voting on wars that we're going to send our kids off to that we couldn't even find on a dadgum globe. And and members having owning stock in those things. The American taxpayer always gets the short end of the stick, and Congress seems to profit at their expense. This body has been enriching itself on the taxpayer's dime, and dadgummit, it's got to stop. The president's already said he would sign a bill banning stock trading for members of Congress if passed. I think the real test is going to be whether Congress has the guts to stand up and do what's right. And I'm proud of all these people up here. I don't agree with them, some of these people, on anything. If Cortez told me the sun was coming up tomorrow, I'd go out and check it out. But she's my buddy, and I'm proud to stand up on the stage with that. And now I will introduce my friend Cortez to come up and speak. Thanks, Cortez.
Thank you, Tim. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. I got to say, I know it was, what was it, like 6 or 7 years ago now, Chip, that you and I were elected here. And one of the first conversations that Representative Chip Roy and I had to do with money in politics, I remember, and just in general. And, I think that this issue has brought so many of us across the political spectrum together because we are united by the value that people should feel that their elected representative puts them and their interests first, and that we are here first and foremost to do the job that the public has sent us to do. And, in many ways, I feel like this press conference and this podium shouldn't necessarily be facing out here. I don't think we need to sell the American people on this. We need to be turning it around and making sure that we get this thing past the post. And I want to thank Congressman Roy for the effort you've put in this Congress specifically to move this forward. And every year we've been getting closer, and I do believe, as we said, that this year we're going to get the vote. And I also want to thank Brian Fitzpatrick as well for, for some of the work that we've done in co-sponsoring our original bill on this. But it's very rare, I feel, in Washington that when we bring multiple stakeholders and folks together to negotiate on a bill, that you leave that room feeling like the bill got better. A lot of times it feels like we'll get to an agreement and we're holding our nose to get something past the post. But I genuinely feel in this process that in putting all of our bills together, we've actually ended up with a product that is legitimately stronger than the sum of its parts. And it is one of those rare moments where I feel like Washington is working the way that it's supposed to work, and it feels foreign and it feels alien, and it's like, what's going on here? But I also think it is proof that that things can work here. And when we put our disagreements aside, of which, of course, there may be many, but we focus on the things that we have in common, we can make our country better, we can make this institution better, and we can increase and earn the faith of the American people, which is really genuinely the core of our work here. And so to that end, I want to thank everyone for their incredibly hard work. We are going to get this done. It requires standing up against the powers that be, but because of the support of the American people on this issue, you all have generated the momentum necessary to give us the power to be able to do this. And I look forward to bringing this to a vote. I look forward to banning the trading of individual stock on the floor and by members of Congress, and I'm looking forward to making this place a better place that puts the American people first. So thank you all so much.
Thank you for everyone for being here. As you know, the group behind us has been very vocal on this topic, and not to reiterate what Chip Roy had stated, but I think it's 95% of Americans support this. I sometimes feel like an adjudicator in this job, so I guess I'll be the one to say that we've asked nicely for leadership to put this on the floor. If they don't, I'm saying timeline is end of month. There's a discharge petition prepared and ready to go. I think it's very clear where the White House stands on this. I don't speak for the White House, but the president has stated that he supports banning this because it is corrupt. Frankly, the fact that members are getting, plus 600% returns on their investments is wrong. But more importantly, how could you ever be expected to represent your constituents when you're clearly worried about your pocketbook? And so that's why we're here today. Again, thank you to Representative Burchett because he helped work on that discharge. But we are very hopeful that this will be brought to the floor in regular order. And we look forward collectively to deliver this one to the American people.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you so much to Seth and Chip and all the people on the stage. Look, this is a message to our colleagues, okay? You may have traded up till now. You may have operated within the confines of the law and the rules and the regulations. This is your chance to do the right thing. This is your chance to do the right thing. We're not going to judge what you did before now. But now that this bill is going to come to the floor, and we're going to make sure of that, it's your chance to get right with the American people. Because at the end of the day, Congress is not a casino. It's not a stock exchange. It's not a betting parlor. The only bet we should be making is on the American people. We can't serve the American people and the public interest at the same time that we're serving our stock portfolio. Please, fellow members, we're not judging you, but now is the time to do the right thing. When 95% of your colleagues, the constituents in your districts and the American people want this, anything else would be going against their best interests and the best interests of the country. Thank you. And now, Scott.
So, look, a lot of the country there's a lack of trust in the government, and this is an opportunity to earn some of that trust back. And quite honestly, when many Americans say, why can't any of you people get together on anything? Up here you have the left and the right standing on the stage for the same issue, for the same cause, which should be an indicator to everybody that this is absolutely the right. This is one of the times when the American people and Congress can get a win. And I would just say, I would sum it up this way. Nobody drafted anybody. Nobody made you run for Congress. You decided you wanted to serve and you ran. Well, coming to Washington, D.C. and serving isn't about what you can get. It's about what you can give. And so I thank the leaders for their courage to bring this and push it and be doggedly about it forever and ever to make sure it gets done. God bless you.
Thank you. Look, the reality is there are 200 million reasons why this bill needs to come to the floor. That's how much members of Congress profited, and a small minority of members of Congress profited from insider trading. I just came to Washington last cycle. I beat an incumbent who had been trading on the Financial Services Committee. And this isn't a Republican or a Democrat issue. Look at the folks behind us. This is a group of individuals who are fighting because it is unfair that members of Congress are trading on insider information and performing 60% better than most of the trading companies in New York City. The reality is this. We have all had great ideas. We led the Stock Act as one of our first bills. Chip has been able to bring together a team from both the left, the right, and everybody in between to be able to put something forward that actually provides integrity back to what this place so desperately needs. The draining of corruption, the holding accountability of elected officials, and most importantly, giving back a little bit of trust to the American people, that the people who are up here fighting for you are actually delivering. And as Anna Luna just highlighted, the shot clock starts right now. We can end insider trading. We can help restore integrity to government, and this team right here is the one who's going to help get it done this cycle. I'm so proud of everybody who's been working on this, and I'm privileged to be part of this team. Thanks, Chip.
So if you want to come up here and we'll field some questions on these specifics. I do want to say one thing, though. While I'm proud to work with everybody here and have been proud to be on this issue for a long time, Seth did an enormous amount of the legwork to bring all this group together and went around office by office. Everybody has been doing this together. Anna and Tim have been working hard to try to put pressure to get it to the floor. I think all of us have been working on this together jointly to get this done. So I just want that to be very clear. Yeah.
Could you please talk about how, if at all, this would impact the White House and the executive branch if this bill were passed?
This legislation focuses on Article 1. It focuses on Congress. Now, there's a great deal of support. I don't want to speak for everybody collectively. I think there's a great deal of support for the executive branch also being, subject to the provisions that we want to put forward. We think all three branches. It ought to be very clear that nobody's benefiting from trading stocks while they're making judgments and leading and executing. This bill, though, I think rightly focuses on Article 1, so we can look at our colleagues and say we should take care of ourselves. Yep.
Congresswoman Luna said that if this bill isn't put on the floor by the end of the month, that she'd put forward a discharge petition. Are both of you prepared to support that discharge petition? Is that the same timeline you envision?
I'll let Seth speak to that. Like, my view is right now, the Speaker said he supports it. The President, Secretary Bessent, this group, large numbers of members of Congress. We've been very clear that we expect to vote. So we would like to see this move, and I'll let Anna speak to it herself, but I'd like to see this move through regular order. We expect it to move through regular order. And if it doesn't move through regular order, then we'll decide what we need to do to make sure that it gets a vote. But it will get a vote.
Yeah, I'll just say, I mean, I certainly don't speak for every Democratic member, just for myself, but, I come at this being agnostic as to how it gets to the floor, whether it's through regular order, whether it's through a discharge petition, a suspension of the rules, whatever, as long as the underlying substance is strong enough to end this corrupt practice and also well thought out enough that it can earn the critical mass of support that it needs to pass the floor. So as long as the underlying bill is the right bill, and I think the one that we're introducing today is that bill, then, how the Speaker chooses to bring it to the floor is up to him. But we do feel some urgency because the American people feel the urgency. And as long as the underlying legislation is good enough to get that critical mass of support, then, however it gets there is fine with me.
Where did you guys land, and can you give more specifics on family members and how this affects
you? Yeah, so spouses and dependent children are covered in the bill. They have the same restrictions as members.
Dependent children.
Yeah, dependent children.
One of the things for those who do actually support Congress members being able to trade stocks is they say, we want to encourage people to run for Congress across all spectrums. For some folks, really being able to have to give up their stocks, give up their assets is a huge disincentive for having the public service of running. How do you respond to that?
Wait, there's so much to say on that.
That shouldn't at all even be a factor when you're running. I guess my question would be, does the military have that option? Can they buy stock in Palantir and Raytheon before they're being sent off to war? I mean, that whole notion that you're somehow sacrificing your financial benefit to be up here. First and foremost, if that's what's incentivizing you to run for office, you are definitely the wrong person to be here. And I think many of that has been reflected in some of the terrible legislation that predates all of us up here. And so my thought to those people is, if you want to trade stocks, go to Wall Street. Don't do it to Congress.
Yeah, you guys jump in.
No, I mean, if anyone says, this isn't fair, I'm going to have to divest all my stocks if I'm going to run for Congress, maybe you should stay home. I think that, as someone, I ran for office, I was a waitress, plenty of people have to make tons of sacrifices to run for office. But I think that really the idea that this is some undue burden is outrageous. And the fact of the matter is, respectfully, and I know I may offend some of my colleagues here, but millionaires are very overrepresented in Congress. And
no offense.
No offense.
I wish I were more offended.
Little too many here. And with respect to the proportion of the American people, and if we want a Congress that reflects the actual country that we seek to represent and fight for, we need to have working class people who live here. And I actually believe, and who work here. And I feel that actually banning the trade of individual stock can help even the playing field and, perhaps open the door to other provisions that can make this an easier place for working class people to get elected to and serve.
I can't remember who had hands up earlier, sorry.
Going back to one of the earlier questions, can you expand on why this bill does not address the president or the executive, why you decided to keep it just on Congress?
Well, what I'll say is this. Many of us, I think in both parties, support including the president and vice president. We are working to see if we can get a critical mass of support to include them or not. If there is, that can always be introduced as an amendment or as a separate bill. But in the meantime, we are putting in this bill that has broad consensus to get the process moving, to keep the pressure on while that conversation continues. I certainly support it. I think many people here do. We're working to see if we have that critical mass.
To the Republicans here, though, has the president advocated against this bill being expanded? Or
I've got no indication of that whatsoever. All I've gotten is support for this, and what we're trying to focus on, and I think rightly, is can we not look in the mirror as the members of Congress and go ahead and decide how we should operate? Start there. But it's really easy for us to go point
And I would say this last year, a year ago with President Biden, President Trump, doesn't matter. This is not a political issue. But we've got to work through executive branch application and getting the votes for that. I would love to have that debate. I would love in regular order to have this come before the committee, come before the admin committee, and then offer amendments and have that debate and bring it forward and offer an amendment that it applies equally to all three branches. That would be a fantastic debate. And I would likely support going in that direction. But I think we need to focus right now on one very clear message. Congress, those of us here, we're responsible for managing our own affairs. We shouldn't be trading stocks while we're voting on these important issues. I think it's that simple. Got a lot of questions. I don't know how we do on time here, but yeah. Okay.
Have you guys talked to Senate counterparts on this? I mean, I know Senator Hawley's bill does include the executive branch, so have you guys had those cross-chamber conversations about this?
Yeah, I'll say from my end of the spectrum, we certainly have. We've talked to Josh. We've talked to folks over in the Senate. And, we're kind of collaborating in broad terms about moving the issue forward. Again, the legislative process, move it forward, get the ideas on the table, then let the process work. But again, the critical element here is that the Speaker and our leadership move it forward. Get it in regular order. Otherwise, you don't get to have those debates and those amendments, and then we have to figure out how we're going to move it, but we're going to move it.
Yeah.
If I can just add in, sorry, real quick. We also, too, made really sure that there were no loopholes that people could exploit and get out of if they're caught doing this. And so when we say that we brought the best of all of this legislation forward, that's exactly what we did. So this is the best shot we have. Slimmest majority in U.S. history, bipartisan support. I can speak for myself, but I think there would be a lot of Americans supporting shutting down the House floor to any legislation until Congress can undo a lot of the corruption that currently exists here, and it starts with this bill.
So they've called votes. So we're going to take a couple more quick
I'll
questions.
just say
Seth,
real quick on the Senate. So, yeah, I've been in touch on the Democratic side with Senator Ossoff, with Senator Kelly, who are the leaders over there. I know Pramila has been working with Senator Warren. Really important point, though, about the Senate. This is going to need to clear 60 votes in the Senate. So this is a bipartisan issue because we have great leaders on both sides who care about it, but it is also a bipartisan issue by necessity, and that is part of why we've come together as a group working so hard to find consensus.
All right, a couple more questions. Go ahead. Yep.
Can you speak, you're all alluding to it, but since you are quite the diverse group of members, can you speak to how you work together and how you maybe overcome or set aside some of the differences that you have on other issues to focus on this, to push it forward, maybe a discharge position, whatever it may be, but a little bit of behind the scenes, if you would.
I tend to forgive the Democrats a lot. That's why.
I'll just give a 30-second going back to when Abigail and I first did this. It sat down literally over, we were just having dinner, we were having, a beer and just talking about the need to solve this problem. And then that has been the way for me. This has occurred with multiple of my colleagues over the last 4 or 5 years. We've all realized how much we have a passion for getting this done. But I'll let you address kind of how we've worked on it over the last 6 months or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably an experience that each of us had. For me, it was with Ken Buck, who's no longer here, and Matt Rosendale. But I think in this iteration, we started by looking at all the provisions that all the bills had and kind of identifying where were the places where we diverged, and started with some of those things. And so things like, do we allow qualified blind trust or not? This bill does not. And going through each of those together. So Seth did a great job of working with all of us to get us all to the same table. But then also we brought in, like I mentioned earlier, experts who said, have you thought about, who reviewed kind of the basic ideas we were playing with and said, have you thought about this loophole? Have you thought about this loophole? How do you handle this thing? And so we were able to also take into account some of the different pieces that maybe hadn't been in the bills. We also looked at the Senate bill and just kind of compared the two, because obviously the closer the two are, the better. But I've been in touch with Senator Kelly as well. He was just out in Seattle. We were talking about this. And I think that there's just a lot of interest. And the bigger the vote is in the House, we all know this, the bigger the vote is in the House, the better it is for the Senate, because it puts pressure on the Senate. It makes our bill the main bill, and hopefully that then becomes the vehicle that moves forward in the Senate. But it was a pretty detailed process, and everybody got to weigh in, and different people had concerns about different things, and we just worked through it until we got to something that everyone felt good about. As Alex said, not a place where we left feeling like, oh, I gave something up. I really do think, as all of us have said, that it was just strong.
Just very quick, the one thing that I immediately noticed when I was in the room with all of my colleagues here is that I think an impetus for a lot of us running for office is to resolve injustices in the system. We have different perspectives on what that is. We all agree on this. And the disconnect between the public and this institution in terms of that gap in trust, this is a main, huge driver of that. So that was a common belief that all of us had. And I was really proud that this group came together on it.
Last question.
You talk about, of course, trying to cover as many loopholes as possible, but is that kind of what gives you guys this confidence that this bill could pass now, or do you feel like this topic is just kind of reached tipping point?
Came to the floor.
Yeah, I mean, we got to get it to the floor. But I think putting this all together, I think has given us now a much better position because we're now united that it has the best elements of each of the bills. And it's really fully thought through. I mean, we've tried to think through everything. It doesn't mean to say that it shouldn't be amended or that it couldn't be made better through the legislative process. We're all about that here. But, to have this deal with disgorgement of profits, to have a 10% penalty if you're going to go ahead and trade even though you're not supposed to apply to family members and dependent children, but to be very clean and very specific as it relates to the securities in question, and to also allow for the ability to have a tax ability to move it, say, from equities over into a fund to encourage members of Congress to do it. We try to listen to members and try to take in information about, okay, we want everybody to do this when they get here to address that issue about, well, why do you get people to run for Congress? Well, fine, we won't make you have a big tax bill, but you are going to have to, divest of all of his individual equities and put them into broadly held funds so you're not being able to day trade.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think there's an external factor and an internal factor. The external factor is that, I cannot begin to describe when this issue comes up at town halls or at events anywhere in the country, people go nuts because it is crazy to the average person that this has been allowed to go on for so long. And I do think that, in part, due to some of your great coverage these last few months, we have reached a tipping point where the pressure from outside the building is becoming too much for leadership to deny. Inside the building, it's been a great collaboration. I'm only in my second term. I'm relatively new here. I hadn't worked with several of the people on the stage before, but every time we met, people came prepared. We in a painstaking way, went through every possible issue or concern that we could think of, and everybody here, surrendered some of their own time in the limelight, surrendered some credit, worked together because we just care about getting something done. So I got to give a great amount of credit to everybody who's been working on this. It's been a very good group to work with, and we're determined to get this done. So.
Thanks, everybody. We got to go vote. Appreciate it.
All right. Yeah, good stuff. Hey, good job. Yeah, you did good stuff.